Service quoting. What's the big deal? That and much more in today's episode of Cargas Energy in Focus. Welcome into another episode of Cargas Energy in Focus. Well, we'll take a closer look into a specific Cargas Energy feature. Today's episode, we're going to talk about the one hot off the press feature, service quoting. Picture this. Your trusty service tech Tony is out on a job site, working on an AC tune-up for a customer. And while he's on site, he saw that the customer's furnace is actually quite old and probably deserved a replacement. So being the team player that he is, after all, Tony has just completed an internal training on how to be sales-minded at all times.
Our prices have never been lower!
Tony offered the customer, hey, would you like to get a quote for a new furnace? So Tony wrote a quote on a piece of paper, detailing all the information the best he could, and then when he's done with the job, he throws the quote into the van, and hopefully at the end of the day, he remembers to bring it back to the back office for the quote to be followed up. Unfortunately, Tony isn't exactly the most organized person, so this quote just ended up being left at the van for a couple weeks, until the customer calls in and asks what's the status of the quote, and then poor Sue at the back office have to figure out what exactly did Tony do or offer this customer. Now, this sounds like a horrible customer experience, doesn't it? But the reality is this is all too common for companies that don't have a way to record service quotes electronically. Some of you have tried to get around this limitation by using our work order functionality, where you would use the work order screen to create quotes. But as you already know, this is a mess, because you're left with these work orders that are not really work orders, and they just kind of hang around in your system until somebody goes in there and cleans them up. It's not really a smooth user experience, and it's certainly not what that screen is intended for. And this is where our quoting functionality comes in. The all-new service quoting functionality is all about efficiency and flexibility. Service quotes can be created whether it's in back office or mobile service. And much like the work order screen, you have a lot of flexibility on adding items to the quote. You can even add discount, and if necessary, you can even create new equipment to be added into the quote. And much like the work orders, you can also add images to a quote. A quote will then automatically calculate the right pricing for this customer, and you can even create a new service contract to be added to the quote to show the customer what they're going to be saving if they purchase this new contract. And finally, when the quote is ready, you can then enter a present quote view, which formats the quote in a very user-friendly way and show it to the customer for them to review and sign. And after the quote is accepted, it can be directly converted into a work order without re-entering any of the data, thus saving you time. Quotes also have an adjustable expiration date, which you can change to meet your unique business process. And lastly, quote history is also available on the customer screen to help your CSRs have better information when dealing with a customer. Now, to help us get a better understanding of this feature, let's talk to Andrea, one of our product managers. She's awesome, and she's also heavily involved in the development of this feature. All right, hi Andrea.
Hey Fareed.
When I think of the service quoting module and all the work that have gone into it, I can think of no better person to talk to. You have probably one of the best pulse on what this whole feature is all about. So, service quoting, can you tell us how long have you been kind of toying with this thing?
I can tell you from the Cargas side, I've heard service quoting tossed around even before I was in a product manager role. So at least over 5 years. And then when I got the opportunity to step into the product management role and oversee the service side of Cargas Energy, I knew this was like the top feature we had to deliver for our customers. So I was super excited to see this get into beta this year.
So that we are all on the same page, especially for those out there who are not even familiar with it, can you describe what this feature is about?
Yes. So my main goal is efficiency. It's really taking a quote. You can build a quote inside Cargas Energy in the back office or in the service app. You can convert that directly to a work order. So it eliminates all that double entry. It eliminates back office having to decipher really bad handwriting from the text on a paper quote. It's just a way to streamline the quote to work order process and have better visibility of quotes within Cargas Energy.
But why couldn't they just use the work order to handle quoting?
So that's a tricky one. I know that was a very popular, and I think this is a bad word, a workaround. But building a work order impacts AR. What if in the event that tech got this work order and the customer said no? If he fails to delete that, that's impacting customer AR. It's impacting inventory if parts were added. And not only that, if that homeowner declines it, there was no history. There's no audit trail of what was offered to that customer and that the customer declined it. So with quoting, you're able to see like this was the quote that was offered to the customer and they declined. So it's a better history, a better view of what you're offering the homeowners and what's going on out in the field.
So we are saying that with quoting, the items that are added into a quote does not get taken out of inventory, and the pricing that we give in a customer does not impact that customer's AR, correct?
Yeah, that was key for quoting. Serialized items can be added to quotes without having to allocate serial numbers because we didn't want to tie up serial numbers in the quote process. So we really took into account a lot of the, what ifs. What if a quote sits open for 29 days? You don't want items tied up possibly being allocated to a quote that could become a work order. So we were really careful taking steps like that. In addition to that, you can add service contracts to a quote to try to upsell. Maybe you're selling a brand new water heater and you're saying, if you get the gold membership, this is what it would look like. Those service contracts added to quotes also are not live active service contracts until that quote is accepted and converted to a work order. So we really sandboxed the quoting process so it doesn't impact the customer account.
So does a quote expire? Can it expire?
It does. So what's really cool, we wanted to make it an efficient process for our customers. So if your quotes are good for 30 days, you can set your default expiration date for 30 days. So when you deliver that quote, the expiration date will automatically populate. After that day, it goes by, we will automatically decline the quote with a decline reason of expired. And that's really to help our customers one, see a time frame of I better follow up on this customer. That quote expires in 10 days. And two, we automatically decline. So you don't have to honor quotes that are 90 days old, especially with the volatile pricing market for service parts and all that stuff that has to go into a quote right now.
Moving on, then the customer accepts the quote. And then what happens when the quote is accepted?
So this is the beauty of it. Any items, labor, if you do time and material billing, flat rates, all that information you put into that quote is converted directly to a work order. So there's no more double entry of service parts, flat rates, labor. Everything just converts one-to-one from a quote to a work order. And then at that point, it's just a matter of scheduling. And then if you have to, order parts to fulfill the work order, you do your purchase order, of course. But really, that's the beauty of it, is the conversion process. Once it's accepted, you can create a brand new work order. Or if you're a tech, maybe you're out in the field and I'm doing one of an annual tune-up, but I see something wrong. I could quote you on additional work and then add that accepted task directly to the existing work order. So you don't have to create a separate standalone work order.
That's awesome. And then if there is a service contract on the quote, does that create the service contract at that point?
It does, yes. So any service contract that you put on that quote, once that work order is converted and accepted, it becomes a live active service contract. In addition to that, when you're creating a quote, say you're at a customer location and they have a piece of equipment you didn't know about. There is no water heater on this customer's account. You can create what we call a draft piece of equipment to give a quote, put all the information in for the equipment, and then once that quote is accepted and converted to a work order, that draft piece of equipment becomes an actual equipment that you can see on the customer account. So yeah, until that time, until it's accepted, that piece of equipment doesn't really exist in the back office.
start with the top one. What's your number one
Okay.
favorite thing about this feature?
Yeah. So this might seem minor, but I know for techs in the field and back office, this will be pretty big. When you're adding tasks to a work order or to a quote, we now allow you to multi-select tasks. So, current state, you do a task lookup, you find your flat rate, you hit the plus button, you add it to the work order, repeat steps 1 through 3. You have to go back to the task lookup, find your second flat rate, click the plus button. We've eliminated that. So you come to your task lookup, you can find all of the tasks that you want. We have multi-select boxes now. So you could add 10 tasks at one time to a quote or to a work order. And I feel like that's going to really improve efficiency, especially for techs that are stacking flat rates out there. You don't have to do the lookup several times anymore.
Thanks, Andrea. I'm so glad that we get to spend this little bit of time to chat about service quoting. I can tell that, and I hope
I'm
our
so
viewers-
excited. Yes, this was awesome. This was big. I cannot wait
Yeah.
to chat with listeners.
I mean, I hope that our viewers can tell that Andrea is super excited about
I
this feature
am.
and wants you all to be able to use it and go out there and make all these beautiful quotes and generate revenue for your company.
And chat with me about what's working, what's not working. Like we're in this together.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of Cargas Energy in Focus. We hope it's been helpful to you. Now, if you have any questions whatsoever about this feature or any other feature, please don't hesitate to contact us. We'll see you on the next one.